This film is sort of trying to distance itself from being a political statement or argument or being provocative. It's a film that's supposed to take the conversation back to the human experience. How does it feel as a human being to be accused of something that you didn't do? How does it feel to be out of nowhere because of a national crisis that you had nothing to do with? How does it feel to suddenly be looked at different and to be treated different and to be discriminated against? Um, I think the human conversation is the conversation that we need to be having while the world is broken at this point. We need to bring it back to that emotional level.
Thank you so much for being here. This is both of your first films, professional films, I believe.
Yeah, this is our first kind of professional film.
Yes.
We did a few for class, but
Yes.
this is our first the real thing.
And so this is coming pretty much straight out of film school for you. Can you talk a little bit about sort of your background and where this idea came from?
So I'm originally from New York.
We got some New Yorkers here.
Yeah, I grew up in Yonkers, and I moved to Israel when I was 12. Went to a yeshiva high school, only boys. So I have like a pretty strange background. But after a few years after I finished high school, I was kind of doing a few different things. I was working at the supermarket, as in this film, and I was teaching English, and I just felt like I wanted to do what I really wanted to do. And I got the courage and I signed up for film school, and it's been the best decision ever since.
You mentioned obviously you two have collaborated before. What was the initial point of connection? And then when it came to this idea, what were those initial conversations between the two of you? You want to take that, Oron?
The talent is clear. So we got in, I think first year, and Meyer read some scripts in class, and I immediately noticed the talent. And so we started working, and there was an immediate connection. I come with a background of almost 30 years in the media industry in Israel. So anything from video editing, cinematography, producing, everything. So it clicked, it worked, and we did a couple of projects together before Butcher Stain, and it set us up. It was understood that we could work together. Then Meyer presented the script for Butcher Stain, and it was a page turner. I couldn't stop reading that, which is not something that happens a lot at film school. So it was great, and the rest is history.
So you mentioned working in a supermarket. And I know that just generally this was very much rooted in personal experience, personal observation. I think for a filmmaker your age, it is an extremely mature and nuanced take on a really fraught moment, right? So what about your experience led you to this particular kind of telling of this story?
So I worked at the supermarket. I worked at the supermarket on and off. I've been there a few times working. It's just such an interesting place because it is sort of the place where everyone goes when they don't have a job in Israel. And so it brings people from all types of ethnicities and all types of backgrounds. So I went to work there after the 7th of October, and the 7th of October was sort of like a coronavirus because everyone was at home and no one was leaving their house. And it was a very kind of suffocating time for a lot of people. And I decided to go work at the supermarket. And what I sort of saw was the supermarket was a microcosm of the Israeli society, and the conflicts within Israeli society were very present within the supermarket. So what I witnessed was there is a lot of tension between the Arab Palestinian Israelis and the Jewish Israelis. And I saw two things happening at the same time. I saw a lot of people who were victims of what had happened, and new people who were murdered. Someone from our year at school was murdered. I mean, everyone knew someone, and it was just so tragic. And at the same time, I saw that that collective trauma and that national crisis that was happening sort of had an effect also on the Palestinian and Arab Israeli community, because there was a finger pointed at them. People were looking at them different. People were treating them different. People were being fired for things that they said. And it was important for me to talk about both of those things at the same time, because I feel like sometimes people feel like those things contradict each other. And they're, if you're on this side of the political spectrum or here, and you have to kind of pick a side. But I really wanted to talk about the whole thing, and capture the whole complexity of how things were as I witnessed them.
We were talking before about the nature of the world we live in now, right? And binaries are a lot easier. They dominate social media algorithms. Did it feel to you like a risk to kind of take that kind of approach? Did it feel important to maybe go against what we just see more and more often now?
It is always a risk, because you tend to have people from all types of, opinions saying, this isn't correct or this isn't correct. I really do believe that in the age of social media, there is too much black and white. There is too much binary. It's either this or that. And this film is sort of trying to distance itself from being a political statement or argument or being provocative. It's a film that's supposed to take the conversation back to the human experience. How does it feel as a human being to be accused of something that you didn't do? How does it feel to be out of nowhere because of a national crisis that you had nothing to do with? How does it feel to suddenly be looked at different and to be treated different and to be discriminated against? I think the human conversation is the conversation that we need to be having while the world is broken at this point. We need to bring it back to that emotional level.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the casting, because Samir is such a fascinating character, and Omar, who plays him, is so wonderful. Or what can you share about the process of casting the role?
First of all, Omar Samir is definitely very easy to work with, professional, and he works in the industry in Israel as an actor, and he's also a filmmaker himself. We were very lucky in that process. Meyer was doing the casting for the cast for this film, and there was a moment we were discussing which possible actor could do it, and then Meyer did the audition for Omar, and me as a producer, he told me Omar couldn't do it the dates that we originally went for. And I said, this is not going to be possible. We got to do the movie. We have schedule. We already have the crew and everything. Everything is all set to go. And Meyer insisted. He said, no, this is the guy. The audition went far and beyond what I wanted. And maybe you could fill in the gap from there.
Omar Samir came recommended to us by an Arab actor agent in Israel, and there aren't a lot of Arab Israeli actors that filled the typecast that I was looking for. So I came to him and I told him what the script is about, and he was like, "Okay, you're gonna audition Omar." And I'm like, "Can I have a few other actors?" And he's like, "No, you're only gonna audition him. He's your guy." And I'm like, "Okay." And then when I auditioned him, not only was he a phenomenal actor, but also he had a take on the scene where he's being accused that I didn't even think of, which was originally that scene. He was supposed to come in and he was going to be accused, and then he was supposed to confront her and be like, "This isn't okay. You have no proof." And what happened is, instead he sort of played it like he was extremely heartbroken, and he was so offended by the fact that another person that he knew suddenly looked at him in this way, like he was a danger. And that really touched me, and I immediately casted him, even though Oron was annoyed that it was a scheduling problem, but we pushed everything in order to make it happen. And the whole entire film, he really catches that essence of the whole entire film, because it's like you expect it to be, arguing in the film, because the film does touch on political issues, but it's not arguing. It's like it's a person that's just hurt.
Mm-hmm. there's that moment in that scene where he says to her, "You know me." You know, there's a immediate kind of understanding even for the audience that she's wrong, because we can see in his eyes and in that performance just how hurt he is by that moment. Um, in addition to that, I do wonder, even for both of you, what you learned by working with him and obviously leaning on his experience and ensuring that you were portraying this character and this experience in a way that was both authentic and very true to what he would know. So what can you both say about that?
Um, I think that working with Omar, uh, Omar, by the way, I think you mentioned it, but he's a director and a DOP himself. Working with him, when I wrote the script originally, I had, I try to write a script that's complex, that's interesting. But when he came into when I casted him, essentially he took that and he taught me a lot about, his community and how his community feels in this time. And he was able to, put in some nuances in his acting and in the dialogue itself that a lot of the times he sort of makes up sometimes on the spot. And, we do a few takes and there's a lot of kind of making things up, the dialogue that the actors themselves are comfortable with. And he was able to put in those nuances of the movie itself. But even outside the film, getting to know him and connecting with him through this film, and we did a screening in Fahim, which is a Palestinian Arab Israeli town in Israel. And it's been such a profound experience for me to be able to connect with an entire community through a film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Filmmaking is just a wonderful thing because it's on the set that we all connect on a on a creative level, on a very basic level. And I think it immediately shows how it doesn't matter what your background is. Once you're on set and everybody's working hard, believing in a script, and working towards creating something so beautiful. It's just it's not that we learned from him or he learned from us. It was just a collaborative work towards what you just saw.
When it comes to the characterization, and particularly that climactic moment when he essentially walks away from the situation, was that always scripted that way? How did you land on where you wanted to leave this character, particularly with the conflict? I want to ask you about the last scene separately, but in terms of the actual conflict of the film.
That was in the first draft. I was writing up until that moment, and while I was writing the script, I got to that scene, and I was just thinking, like, what could he possibly even say? Is he just going to explain to them that the air conditioning unit is what's, you know, tearing down the posters? And then I realized that essentially so I could sort of write it so that the way that they look at him, the way that they gaze at him, sort of tells him all he needs to know, which is that they're not ready for change. This whole entire film, the way that the other characters behaved, um, it just shows that society has brought them to a point that they just can't accept him as a part of society, which is it's a tragic moment and it's a very sad moment, but it's also an essential moment because it's for me as a filmmaker to admit I have 26 minutes, but I can't change things in 26 minutes. I can't solve things in 26 minutes. And society at this point, even worldwide, isn't ready for change. We're kind of in this position where we're stuck. And the only way to get out of that position is to be authentic and truthful about the fact that we're in that position, the fact that we are stuck and that we are broken, and that the only way to actually fix things is to look into each other's eyes and respect one another and have a respectful conversation. I'm, I
want to ask Oron about casting Meyer. I'm sure you all recognized him in the film. it's a pivotal part, right? And I think it's a fascinating role for you to take on within the context of the story you're telling. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, what that discussion was.
For him to act in the movie.
Yeah.
Isn't he a great actor? So, well, the thing is, with Meyer, he did act in his previous projects that we worked on, and it was kind of a natural way for him to be there. And I think we both knew that, at least I knew that it was a good choice. And I think, I think he nailed the part. I mean, I hate you. I just hate him. No, but it's like he's just a good actor. He's good in front of the camera, and that was it. We knew it was gonna happen. I got in the film
Yes.
because the producer, in a student film, low budget, you do everything for the movie to move forward, and we weren't able to cast Avram on time. And so there I was, as I'm bringing food in and getting people out of the set when they're done with their day, I'm also jumping in front of the camera.
I wrote that part for you. I can speak to, first of all, I do usually play in my own films, but suddenly when there's like a professional set and we had all these people on set, running to the monitor and then running to the camera and then running back to the monitor and watching it play back, I don't know. I mean, it was really challenging. But the reason that I really wanted to do that part was because I felt like, as a filmmaker, when you make a film about racism and discrimination, sometimes there's a sense of like, I made a film about racism and discrimination, and now I've kind of cleaned myself of responsibility in society. I've done my part. And what I really wanted to say is that I haven't done my part yet. Like, the film is important, but also I have to go out and vote. I have to protest. I have to stand up for what I believe in. And that was important for me. So I just didn't want to separate myself from the film. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to show that I'm a part of everything that's going on, and that I also experienced it. And then I can't distance myself from the situation.
I would just like to add that we had a very dependable cinematographer, Sefi Elisha Nachmani. As you saw, that he was very easy to rely on in terms of the shots being getting correctly, and and see that Meyer does his job well as an actor. So and we had a wonderful crew, so it all helped. Yeah.
The last shot is beautiful and quite haunting in some ways. How did it develop?
That was a shot that was in the script in the first draft. I had literally written like the camera goes back and you see the hostage posters. I think that what it is first of all, it's a memory for me. It's the sort of like pulling out with the camera and then me myself sort of remembering this time where you would go everywhere and there would just be hostage posters everywhere because they were all taken captive. And it was a very haunting time, as you said. It was a very haunting time in history, just to be going around. The war is still going on, everything that's happening, all the violence, and it's just, you see these hostage posters everywhere. So that was like sort of a memory for me. It was 2024. It had been a year since the beginning of the war, and that was how I sort of thought of it, visually. But I think narratively, the way that I thought about it was Samir kind of looks at the camera in that last scene. He's sort of like looking around, and then suddenly he looks directly down the barrel of the camera. And that was my way of saying Samir has done everything that he can. He's tried everything. He's tried to prove his innocence silently. He's tried to prove his innocence by confronting the person who is framing him unfairly, and nobody listens. And he's always viewed as a danger, and he's always viewed as someone who's just not part of society. And now it's our turn. Now it's the viewer's turn to be. Now I wanted to initiate the viewer and say, the film isn't over because we can still do something. We can still speak about it. We can still, stand up for these issues, and we can still respect one another.
This film, of course, is nominated for the Oscar for Best Live Action Short. Congratulations to both. And so here you are in Los Angeles sharing this film with folks. You mentioned showing it in Israel as well. As this film has grown and as you have, its audience has expanded, I'm curious just about kind of how the reactions, how you've observed them from place to place, especially making a movie about a topic as fraught as this, like what it's been like to kind of take it around the world.
The reactions. So it's a question that divides into two. What are the reactions of people seeing it on the internet, and what are the reactions of people who actually watch the film?
As ever, either.
I mean, people online sometimes kind of read that log line, and people have gotten mad over it because they think that it's a film that sort of represents some sort of one-sided argument, that this side is bad and this side is good, and it's the opposite of what the film is trying to do. So I mean, we have been sort of attacked online. We have been the culture minister has said some things about us, but I think the important thing is that when people do see the film, and this is people that come from all types of backgrounds and people that come from all types of politics, they realize that there's nothing to get mad at, because it's just a guy and he's just going through this sort of complicated this situation where he's being accused unfairly, and it's a human experience. It's not me trying to convince you of my political opinion. It's the opposite. I made this film so that people can talk more about these things, so that people can have a conversation. Maybe you disagree with some things in the film. Maybe you disagree with what Samir is saying or what he's posting online. Maybe you don't. It's really about the fact that we're all humans and we can all connect to being unfairly accused, and we can all connect to having a complicated situation, family situation, like what Samir has. But the most profound reactions was the screening in Fahim that I spoke about, which is, again, it's a Palestinian Arab Israeli town. And it's Omar's hometown, so he's like Brad Pitt there now. And which is always very exciting for us to see that he's getting the credit that he deserves. And people came up to me after the screening and they were like, listen, it's a good film. We really like the way it was shot. We really like the way it was acted. But this is our experience. This is our day-to-day. So it's not only a film, it's also your responsibility now. You have the responsibility to represent us in a respectful way. You have the responsibility to show this film to people. And so I realized that when you do make a film about such a sensitive topic, a topic that is the daily struggle of certain communities, you then have not only a film, but you also have a responsibility.
Last word to you.
Meyer obviously wanted to write something about a specific experience and what is obviously relevant, but he also wrote a script about a guy, an everyday guy who struggles, who has a family, who just trying to how do you say, provide for his family, and is struggling in a workplace that is slowly becoming, or suddenly becoming a sort of hostile to him. Again, call me naive, when I read the script, I saw just a great story. I saw a fascinating story that I thought was worth working hard for and putting it out there. And so that's my perspective on it. But I'm also aware of the emotional and relevant and very truthful perspective that you have on the project.
Wonderful. Meyer, Oron, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much.